right?
Come on over here.
All right, you come watch and watch and see how we do it.
All right, you got to stay out of the background.
My name's Michael Judd. I live here in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains of Maryland. We have about 25 acres of mixed woods, and the open areas we've planted with food forests, a mix of fruit and nut trees. We live in harmony with this place, what we kind of call, full circle, where we give back what we're taking. Try to live in an ecological and cultural balance.
Do you feel like you've always been on a path with this discipline, or have you kind of changed over time?
Things have changed. I grew up in suburbia in the 70s. My grandparents and my family had farming roots down in North Carolina. We had a garden. About 19, I read Al Gore's book, Earth in Balance, and that opened my eyes. I'd never really been told the degree of damage that's been happening on a global scale. And that kind of set my compass to learning more about, what can I do? And that journey led me to live in rural Latin America for almost 20 years. Learning and living with indigenous cultures, rural cultures. As I've come back here to Maryland, started a business, edible and ecological landscaping, as well as nut orchards, education, permaculture, also getting involved in natural death care and burial as part of the full cycle. Working through living systems, planting orchards, food forests, working with plants, you begin to understand how things cycle, how growth dies, feeds the soil, returns again as growth, and you need that. We as humans are not fulfilling that cycle in the sense of being born and dying, not feeding back into the system. How do we work more with natural burial, natural home death care as part of the full cycle that feeds a healthy environment and feeds a healthy culture? Everybody dies, right? How we die and the plan for our death care varies widely. Traditionally, religion has supported families in time of death, but there's a lot of people, our family included, that don't have a strong religious practice. What do we do? Especially if we're not wanting to hand over our loved ones to the funeral industry. That's kind of what began our journey of exploring home death care and home burial. When it came time to consider the death options for my father, when I looked at conventional funeral industry that uses hardwoods for their coffins, a lot of metal in the coffins, concrete vaults, chemicals for embalming, naturally I was like, well, that's a huge ecological footprint as your last act. That's not what we want to do. So that opened the conversation of, well, what do we do? What are the options? So we looked, okay, well, what are the green cemetery options, public green cemetery options? In Maryland, there's very few. There's a couple cemeteries that do a hybrid, which means they're a conventional cemetery with an area that's green cemetery. And usually they're very booked, they're very popular. Well, there's not an obvious green cemetery option. Let's explore home burial. Let's see how we can do this with the least ecological footprint. And green burial, natural burial, home burial, these all kind of come together over the support of not damaging or taking resources as a last act, as well as the spiritual and community aspects that come along with it. So there's almost two sides to this that come together. The amount of pollution that goes into embalming a alone is ridiculous in this country. Same with the amount of tropical hardwoods that are used. The statistics are stunning of how much is used in the death industry. The concrete that's used, you can do a sidewalk to the moon and back, and this is just like in 1 year. The metal that's used in the caskets in the US alone could build the Golden Gate Bridge. How much embalming fluid could fill how many swimming pools? I don't think we realize how much we are using. Just as a nation in 1 year, it's staggering. So that's a huge ecological footprint, and it's a huge cost too. And it's unnecessary. So green burial, natural burial, home burial pretty much comes down to going back to the earth more as you are, being wrapped in a shroud, some favorite quilt, not using resources as your last act. A lot of people see cremation as a green alternative to conventional burial. And it may take less resources, but it takes a lot of resources. Our bodies are basically water. Cremation uses an immense amount of heat, thus energy, to basically cook you down, take all the moisture out of your body. It's insane the amount of heat energy that's used. And then there's the off-gassing, mercury and other things in our bodies that gets emitted into the atmosphere. So I encourage people to look further and understand that cremation is still an environmental impact. If you are really into caring for the earth, an environmentalist, if that's the way you've lived your life and the way that you want to, end your life, then green burial and natural burial are your least impact opportunities.